And the Middle East continues to witness extremely serious developments following the strikes carried out by the United States and Israel on Iran and the subsequent Iranian strikes on Israel and some Arab countries. The situation intensified last night after US airstrikes targeted oil sites in Iran. We will continue to monitor and cover all these developments in our special coverage on Qnews. The UAE Ministry of Defense said that air defense systems are dealing with a missile threat. Meanwhile, the UAE Ministry of Interior stated that the sounds being heard are the result of intercepting ballistic missiles and drones coming from Iran. The website Axios reported that the United States and Israel have discussed the possibility of sending special forces into Iran at a later stage of the ongoing conflict, with the aim of seizing Tehran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium. And according to the report, this discussion comes within the context of US President Donald Trump's declared objective of preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. Estimates indicate that Tehran possesses around 450 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60%, a level that could be further enriched to weapons grade within a few weeks. The Israeli army announced that it had carried out airstrikes on what it described as military infrastructure across Iran. And in a statement, it said that the Israeli military launched a wave of strikes targeting military infrastructure belonging to the Iranian regime throughout Iran. And it added, "We struck Iranian regime F-14 aircraft at Isfahan airport." The spokesperson for the Israeli occupation this morning on the southern suburb of Beirut. And earlier, the Israeli military had announced that it had launched strikes on what it described as Hezbollah infrastructure in the area. The Lebanese Ministry of Health announced that 11 people were killed and 5 others injured in a series of Israeli airstrikes on several towns in southern Lebanon. And the ministry said the Israeli strikes targeted the towns of Habush, Jabal el-Butum, el-Qusayr, Kafr Amman, Dibin, and Aitarun. Israeli warplanes also carried out separate overnight airstrikes on the southern suburb of Beirut. And for further analysis, we are joined from Cairo by the international law expert, Councillor Hossein Medine Alem, and welcome, sir, to Qnews. Thank you for joining me here today. Sir, under the international humanitarian law, how do you assess Israel's bombardments of Lebanon, and what obligations exist to protect civilians under the Geneva Conventions?
Thank you so much for having me. This is a very important question in light of all the unfolding events. And let me state here very clearly that under international humanitarian law, the legality of bombardment is assessed primarily through the principles of distinction, proportionality, and precaution. All of them actually are reflected in the Geneva Conventions and the subsequent or the additional protocols. Parties to a conflict must always distinguish between military objectives and civilian populations, and civilians must never be intentionally targeted. Even when attacking legitimate military objectives, operations must not cause incidental civilian harm that is excessive in relation to the anticipated military advantage. Attacking forces, therefore, must also take all feasible precautions to minimize harm to civilians and civilian infrastructure, including verifying targets and adjusting operations when risks become excessive. This is why, in essence, international humanitarian law does not prohibit warfare, but it strictly prohibits warfare that disregards civilian protection.
Yes. Considering the UN resolutions of 1559 and 1701, do you think Hezbollah's disarmament is realistic or legally complex?
Yeah, definitely. This is a very important question. And let me here also clarify the fact that UN Security Council Resolution 1559, which was in the year 2004, calls, as a matter of fact, for the disbanding and disarmament of all militias in Lebanon, while resolution number 1701 of the year 2006 reaffirmed the importance of extending Lebanese state authority throughout the country or throughout the Lebanese territory. These resolutions, as a matter of fact, of the UN, they reflect a legal objective that arms should ultimately fall under the exclusive authority of the Lebanese state here in this regard. However, implementation, as a matter of fact, involves significant political, security, and domestic governance complexities, particularly given how is it Lebanon's internal political structure and regional dynamics are very intricate and very complex. However, and this is also key here, implementation involves significant political, security, and domestic complexities, particularly when we see all the unfolding events. And this is why international law establishes the obligation, but the practical enforcement mechanisms remain limited, I would say, often relying on diplomacy and internal political mechanisms. This is why, legally speaking, the principle is clear and well defined: state authority over arms, but its implementation remains politically complex.
Yes. Councillor Alam, how do Israel's claims against Lebanon for Hezbollah's arms delays hold under international law? I mean, could this justify military action or assign any state responsibility?
Yes. Under international law, state responsibility arises when a state exercises effective control over non-state actors or fails to prevent internationally wrongful acts within its territory under certain conditions. Hezbollah is widely considered a non-state armed group, which complicates, as a matter of fact, the attribution of its actions directly to the Lebanese state. For military action to be justified under self-defense, according to Article 51 of the UN Charter, there must be an armed attack attributable to a state or involving significant armed attacks originating from its territory. So even in such situations, any responses must still meet the requirements of necessity and proportionality under international law. This is why, in legal terms, the actions of non-state actors do not automatically translate into full state responsibility.
Yeah. In the light of the UN Charter, how do you view Trump's remarks on the strikes in Iran? Could self-defense or customary law justify them?
The UN Charter establishes a general prohibition with regards to the use of force. Uh, we clearly see this under Article number 2 and particularly paragraph number 4, making military strikes unlawful unless a recognized exception applies. The primary exception, of course, is self-defense, which is regulated and stated under Article 51, which requires the occurrence of an armed attack and adherence to necessity and proportionality. Some legal arguments, as a matter of fact, invoke anticipatory self defense under customary international law, but this interpretation remains, as a matter of fact, controversial and a contentious
Yes.
issue among international law scholars. So this is why any strike must therefore demonstrate a clear legal basis and credible evidence of an imminent or ongoing armed threat. نعم يا فندم.
Sir, how do you see the future of the ongoing war in the region?
Of course, from a legal perspective, there are necessities that need to be observed and taken into consideration. The international law and the UN Charter is very clear in this regard that it urges all concerned party to be committed to the observance of, of the principles and rules of international humanitarian law. As well, in this regard, it urges all parties to pursue and to seek diplomatic channels and de-escalation mechanisms so that the conflict and the acts of the war would not spread to a wider area.
And that was Councillor Hossemuddin Alem from Cairo, the international law expert. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here on Q News. And US President Donald Trump has said he would not reveal the conditions under which Washington might deploy ground troops to Iran, stressing that such a step would only be considered once Iran's ability to wage land warfare has been effectively neutralized. And Trump claimed that military operations against Iran have achieved more than a single week than initially expected, describing Tehran as severely weakened. And he added that Kurdish groups had expressed interest in joining the conflict, but said he discouraged their involvement, arguing the situation is already sufficiently complex. Trump also accused Iran of responsibility for a strike on a school in Hormozgan province, while asserting that the current campaign is eliminating a threat that has persisted for nearly 47 years. He concluded by urging Iran to surrender unconditionally, claiming the world would become safer once the attacks on Iran come to an end. The Israeli Minister of Defense, Israel Katz, called on the Lebanese authorities to take immediate action to disarm Hezbollah, holding the Lebanese government responsible for any potential escalation in the ongoing conflict. And Katz addressed Joseph Aoun, the president of Lebanon, saying that Israel had adhered to previous agreements related to disarming Hezbollah, but that this has not happened so far. And And fires broke out in Ashdod in southern Israel after Iranian missile fragments landed in the area, causing local damage and raising security concerns. And that came as the Israeli army declared that it will continue tracking and targeting anyone involved in selecting a successor to Iran's supreme leader, emphasizing that all participants in meetings or efforts to appoint the next leader will be considered legitimate targets. An official stressed that Israel views these succession efforts as a direct threat to regional security and reiterated its determination to act preemptively against any individuals or groups connected to Tehran's leadership transition. Qatar Ministry of Defense has reported that Qatar faced an attack yesterday involving 12 Iranian-launched missiles, including ballistic projectiles. And 2 of these missiles fell into uninhabited areas of Qatari territorial waters, while 6 were successfully intercepted by the country's air defense systems. Officials emphasized that Qatar possesses full capabilities to firmly counter any external threats, ensuring the protection of its territory and population. The ministry reaffirmed that its defenses remain fully operational and vigilant, capable of responding decisively to hostile actions. And authorities stressed the importance of maintaining security and sovereignty in the face of regional tensions and confirmed ongoing measures to monitor and neutralize any future missile or aerial threats to Qatari territory. The Saudi Ministry of Defense has announced that air defense systems successfully intercepted and destroyed several hostile drones after they entered Saudi airspace. Officials reported that multiple unmanned aircraft were shot down east of Riyadh, while another drone heading towards the capital's diplomatic quarter was also intercepted, preventing a potential attack. And authorities confirmed that the incident caused no casualties or material damage. Additional attempts to target Riyadh using 3 drones were thwarted after they were downed over the city. Air defenses also intercepted another drone in the empty Quarter Desert as it was heading towards the strategic Shaiba oil field. And according to reports cited by Agence France Presse, a total of 14 drones were intercepted in the Riyadh area. Saudi officials stressed that defense systems remain fully prepared to counter any aerial threats targeting the kingdom. And for further analysis, we are now joined from Cairo by Al Ahram's managing editor, Mr. Mohammed Azzeddin. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here today on Qnews. Sir, how do you see the U.S. attacks that took place yesterday on the oil sites in Iran?
Thank you for having me here on Qnews. Definitely these U.S.-Israeli strikes on the oil sites in Iran is a grave mistake. Things now are getting to a point of a destruction war, and not just eliminating the regime or changing the regime or about a nuclear program even. No one is talking about the nuclear program anymore. And this means that the real objectives of targeting Iran by Israel and the US is destroying or having full-scale destruction and starting to change the whole Middle East, and then also in addition to Trump's economic goal, which is taking over the oil sites in the region and the military production sites. And so, as I said, this is a grave mistake, and I think that Iran will be responding and attacking more US bases in the region, and things can even even get beyond that to attacking infrastructure in the region, and we will enter a loophole and economic collapse in the region, and even a crazy surge for oil prices.
Do you think we can witness further
هل تعتقد
escalation
أنه
in the coming hours, sir? Sir, can you hear me?
through footages and the pressure on the infrastructure in Iran can actually push for more retaliatory operations from Iran, and there are more operations, and this could lead to more operations, especially that Israel has been talking about attacking new officials, and their willingness to kill any successor to Khamenei, and this is actually really strange. This war now is getting more bloody, and they have been attacking civilians more often, and it is very clear that Iran will not surrender and will not stop attacking the US bases in the region, and even firing missiles that they say they still have on Israel.
How do you view Israel's threats to target any meeting held to select a new Iranian supreme leader?
Actually, especially because they have attacked a person with religious significance, and they've also been attacking civilians, more officials, and so this is getting personal from their side, and this is a clear. Their objective is now clear. They want to attack the foundation of the Iranian country and their religion, and I actually think that this will get it or get things get Iran to be more stronger and not weaker as the US and Israel think. Here things will become this will allow them to become more stubborn, and they will absolutely refuse any operation or any attempts to go back to the negotiation table and de-escalate.
Mr. Izzeddin, what is your comment on Israel's statements about targeting all areas in Iran?
Said this is them trying to break Iran's bones. They are trying to, to have what happened in Gaza, what they everything that they did, destroying everything, whether it be belonging to military or actual civilians, and also pressuring the country further through destroying the infrastructure. There are rules even in times of wars, but unfortunately, Israel doesn't honor any of these laws, and they've been attacking civilian areas in Iran, and they've been also justifying this aggression, because they know that they are protected by the U.S. Bases, and then in addition to using more missiles and having more casualties and more economic losses, and then also having damage to the Gulf countries because of targeting the U.S. bases. And we've seen some businessmen and investors actually leave these Gulf countries, and we've also seen a surge in oil prices and a halt in production. Just waiting to see what will happen in the
Sir, how do you see the continuation of the Israeli strikes on multiple sites within countries in the region?
Fortunately, there are two things here. The first one is that these clear military operations, and then the second thing is what Iran has been saying is that there are targets from the US to some benefits in the Gulf countries, and just accusing Iran of saying that they've been attacking these bases or US. And here, what comes from this US Israel attacks on Iran, they've been actually targeting all places, and Israel and the US both have said that they aim to weaken Iran internally, so that the Iranians can start protesting against the IRGC and the current regime. And so this is one of their main objectives, of course, along with other objectives that Trump has been talking about, which is ending their nuclear
Okay,
program
sir,
once and for all, and then also getting
can
all
you
nuclear
just tell me,
products
sir,
out.
what is your take regarding Trump's remarks you just mentioned right now about continuing the strikes on Iran? Sir, what is your take on Trump's remarks about continuing the strikes on Iran? Can you hear me, sir?
Uh, as I said, this war is just without objectives. In Trump's rhetoric keeps changing, not just every day, but he changes his statements, even twice daily. The price of this war will be getting higher and higher for Iran and for the regional countries, and then also this will affect international economy, and this is very unfortunate, especially within the context of providing Israel with missiles and then using some aircrafts to attack Iran. And these actually use a plot of missiles that has led Trump to ask the largest missile production companies to increase their production by 4 times. Things are heading towards escalation and reaching U.S. Economic objectives and trying to control the Middle East after overthrowing Iran.
And can you tell us maybe when might the attacks on the Arab countries stop? When do you think?
If there is an initiative and Iran accepts it, in addition to the US, maybe the US then can stop or pressure Israel to stop their military operations. When they started attacking the infrastructure and oil sites, I think that we will be seeing and witnessing an internal problem along with the ongoing war. And so I think that maybe there will be a change in Iran's view, and maybe they will work towards de-escalation. And as you know, as the war goes on, the aircraft capabilities keep getting lower as for the countries directly involved in the war or for the Gulf countries. And so this uh, increases the risk of attacking the infrastructure. And so this actually can push the Gulf countries to mediate to reach a ceasefire so that the war couldn't go on.
Mr. Azedine, when do you think the war in Lebanon could stop if the government actually disarms Hezbollah?
I don't think that the Lebanese army, especially after the attacks on southern Lebanon, will be able to disarm Hezbollah, unfortunately. And what the secretary General Hezbollah talked about just 2 days ago that they shouldn't pressure Hezbollah to disarm. This means that it could lead to a direct confrontation between Hezbollah and the Lebanese army. I don't wanna use the term civil war, but this is what's going to happen if they use force against Hezbollah, if the Lebanese army uses force against Hezbollah. And so southern Lebanon and Beirut and other cities will be a main targeted area of Israel.
And from Cairo, that was Al Ahram's managing editor, Mr. Mohammed Izzeddin. Thank you so much, sir, for your analysis and for joining us here today on Q News.